How do you say that name? Tribute,
Triboulet.
Tribulate. Okay.
It's Triple A. I was saying Triple A a lot of times because people kept saying Triple A,
Okay.
but it's it's Triple A. It's a French word. It's named after the French gesture.
Word. Okay. Okay.
hmm
I can
So
dig that.
yeah, man. So yeah, we're live. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Now That's Debatable. We're streaming at a slightly unusual time. A lot of times we stream right at 6 or right at 7, but we're uh we're starting at 6:50 today because that's just how it worked out. So thanks for tuning in, guys. And so I guess yeah, give me 1 second. All
Okay.
right. Yeah, the audio started talking, and so I
Oh
thought you were
wow.
asking me a question. But
Oh
like,
no, no, no.
so the I guess the reason I wanted to bring you on because we were talking about what atheists believe.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you remember that conversation. It was a post that I had pulled up, and it said
Yeah.
it was essentially it was this meme, and it said like to be an atheist, I would have to believe nothing produced everything, non-life produced life, randomness produced precision, chaos produced order. I simply do not have that much faith, and so this is this is a common thing that I hear among Christian apologists. They'll 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 concoct these in my opinion, fictional beliefs that atheists supposedly have, and then say, "Yeah, I don't have enough faith for that." And the way I look at that, it seems to me that they are strawmanning atheists that way to make religion to seem, I guess, more credible, or at least make atheism to seem to be on par
Mhm.
with their particular religion. And I know you and I actually be good. And I think it was another atheist in there on the comment section where we were discussing. And I think we talked about I think the first one that says nothing produced everything. Do,
Yeah.
are do you still believe that atheists or that science, the Big Bang Theory teaches that nothing produced everything? Or I'll get there, my explanation makes sense. If not, I can go into more detail
That,
about
so
that.
that's so let me so are you giving me, let's make sure we set up a foundation, right?
hmm
So are you giving me your viewpoint on atheism, like what's personal to you, or are you speaking in a broad general sense?
So I was talking about me. So it's like
Okay.
a lot of other belief systems, like for instance, like Christianity, Islam. They have these prongs, right? In order to be Christian, you have to meet some criteria. Believe in the resurrection. Like there's some things there's several things you may have to confess or believe in to be a Christian, right?
Right.
Atheism doesn't have any prongs, right? Like Christianity, you might think of like as a fork, right? The resurrection, the ascension, the virgin birth, and etc. Maybe, right?
Mhm.
Atheism is a chopstick. If you Do you believe in God? No, that's it. It doesn't. Atheism doesn't. It's not a worldview. It doesn't tell you anything about the origin of life, about the origin of the universe. It doesn't say anything about morality. It doesn't say anything about destiny, purpose, value. None of that. It's just one. It's a epistemic position on one question. Do you believe in God? If the answer is not yes, you're atheist. That's it. Now,
Okay.
a lot of atheists usually, from when I encounter, they tend to also be skeptics, because especially here in the United States, and there's a few people I've met, a few that were born and raised atheists, right? Actually, I've met one person like that. Actually, not a few. I met one person like that, but that's usually pretty rare. For the most part, atheists in the United States tend to come out of Christianity, and you will usually bring them out of that is some form of skepticism. Like, and I know
Mhm.
you're familiar with Be Good, the fanatic,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And,
yeah,
and like, yeah, he
yeah.
was cross movement guy. He's a skeptic. right? That's what led him after led him out of that, and it
Hmm.
eventually, to atheism. So when I was telling you my position, I was telling you what I personally believe about the origin of the universe, or about
Hmm.
what science says. But that's not what all atheists believe. And you can be an atheist and think everything come from nothing. But science doesn't say that. Like the Big Bang Theory, that's not the Big Bang Theory. But you can be an atheist and believe that. Like
And
that's
so,
not inconsistent with atheism.
got you. That's why I asked that, because I'm the same way. As a Christian,
Hmm.
there's some things that I disagree with other Christians. So I'm always let you know when, hey, this is my viewpoint, my interpretation, or this is the overarching opinion of Christian. Like you said, absolutely. To be a Christian, you have to believe in the resurrection, the death, burial, and the resurrection.
Hmm.
But even if you get into the Trinity, that's a conversation. You know what I'm saying? So that's
Right.
why I asked that. So getting back to the question, so I've definitely, because I love apologetics. So I've
Hmm.
1000%. That's what made the meme catch my attention. I don't just be searching just for conversations. I have better things to do with my time. You know what I'm saying? But when I
Hmm.
see something that catches me, I feel like, okay, this is something, because that's what I say. And I get that because I've seen so many debates from rocket scientists to philosophers that are atheists that hold to that. They say that the universe was a pin dot and this thing started vibrating. I'm gonna just cut across the field with it.
That's
This
not
thing started
nothing. What you're describing isn't nothing. So what
right.
you're
So let,
describing is pretty like that's pretty damn close to the lambda CDM model, right?
yeah.
This
So I
like
don't even
cosmic inflation.
I don't even know what that is. So
Okay,
so 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 let
that's
me
the
so
Big
let's
Bang.
let me give you my ignorance, and you school me on,
Okay,
because this is your belief. You know what I'm saying?
sure.
So from watching people like Christopher Hitchens and all these people, you know what I'm saying, who I love seeing the conversations. They say that the universe, this dot, whatever it is, like I said, pardon my ignorance, it started vibrating for whatever reason. It exploded, created the cosmos. Let's get to the Earth. The Earth was super hot for whatever reason. It's super cooled for whatever reason. It
Yeah.
rained for a gazillion years. Night sprang forth, and now I got an eyeball. That's just the
Okay.
the short.
So
The short. Go ahead. So give me. So you give me what you understand about what I just said.
okay, so first, like when he said that, like there's a little dot sort of vibrating, sorta. So, but the thing about remember they claim in that claim in the meme is a Christian meme. It says atheists believe everything came from nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. Okay. All right. So if we're talking about that little dot, that's not nothing. That is something.
Hmm.
So okay. So here's what we know. So we look out in the universe. Universe is expanding. It's expanding at about 74 kilometers per second per megaparsec, right? And so that sounded like a mouthful, but like it's really simple to understand. Like a
I got
parsec,
you. It's getting
yeah,
bigger.
yeah. So yeah, a parsec is about about 3.25 light
I got
years.
you.
A
Uh-huh.
megaparsec is a million parsecs. So for every million parsecs, the space is expanding about 74 kilometers per second. So
Got
every second it is getting 74 kilometers larger. All right.
you.
So you rewind time, it must have been smaller, right?
Hmm.
It gets to a certain point
It had a
where
beginning.
not a beginning.
Okay.
So what we call it, so what we typically colloquially call a beginning is where Einstein's field equations stop. So general relativity, that's Einstein's
Hmm.
theory of gravity, right? And it
Hmm.
changed, right? And under Newton, gravity was just like this attractive force, right?
Hmm.
But Einstein looks at it differently. He looked at as gravity. He talked about he talked about this um three-dimensional field called space-time, and matter bends it, right? So like imagine like the earth sitting on a piece of fabric, and because it's heavy it bends the fabric so things come toward it. That's how Einstein describing it. So he just describing like as gravity just bends in this cosmic fabric, right?
Hmm.
And his field equations describe how those things bend. It also describes how the universe expands and how backwards in time it shrunk. And Einstein's field equations can keep describing it until it get to a certain point. At
Mhm.
that point, it's a really small area of space we call a Planck length, which because of quantum mechanics is the smallest it's the smallest area of discrete space that we could actually measure.
Okay.
So now here's the catch. So you have four fundamental laws of physics, right? You have electromagnetism, you have the strong and weak interaction, and you have gravity, right? So gravity is described with general relativity. The other three are described with something called the standard model. And it's in the standard model, they're able to describe those laws as discrete segments, like as particles. That is actually far more that's actually more precise than Einstein's field equations can describe gravity, right? So Einstein's field equation, it can describe space-time as a field very, very precisely, but not as precise as we can in quantum mechanics in the standard model.
Okay.
So we get to a certain point where we know what the other three forces were doing. We don't know what gravity was doing to a certain when the universe gets to a certain point
Okay.
at a Planck length, right? At that point, we have no idea what's happening in the universe. That is not the beginning of reality. That is not the beginning of the universe. That's just where Einstein's field equations stop working.
Okay.
That's what I don't. Did you remember the analogy I gave when you're trying to see you're standing on the beach and you're looking, you're trying to see
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
far
Yeah.
from the ocean is,
Absolutely.
right?
Hmm.
That's it's exactly analogous to what's going on here. We look far in the past, and then the universe. We keep rewinding time about 13.8 billion years ago when the universe is
Hmm.
like really small, and then we just can't describe anything else because we don't know what's going on. We
So
know.
so that brings me. If you remember when you gave me that analogy, I said, well, my thinking, the way I think is, where did the ocean come from? So here's my question: do you
Mhm.
believe in intelligent design?
No.
So let me,
You're asking me like as an intelligent design, do I believe the universe was created by some
was
cosmic
created,
being?
right?
No, no.
So let me ask you this: that's where my struggle comes in. That, and I'm a skeptic myself.
Hmm.
I was raised as a Christian, by default. My mama was, my daddy was, whatever. So, but I never was serious about God. You know what I'm saying? Like I used to be hustling. I have weed in my car. God don't let me get pulled over. Like foolishness. So when I made 18, that's when I really got serious about God. But my mindset was I didn't want to have to explain this tingly feeling that I felt
Hmm.
because I'm analytical by nature. I question everything. So what I did, and this is 1999. So what I did was I set on a search to disprove my belief. I didn't go at it trying to make it right or make it make sense. I went at it trying to be like, this don't make sense. You know what I'm saying?
I think
So,
that may have been a problem because I think
so,
where you're doing
so let me finish.
epistemology backwards. Okay, but go ahead.
Right. So let me finish. So when I started digging into history and the Bible and why is there so many religions and all
Hmm.
that, you make a long story short, short story long. That's what led me to my Christianity, and that's what I've been standing on since 1999. So that being said, my curiosity with apologetics and with atheists, everything you just explained, half the words you said, I never heard a day in my life, ever.
Okay.
Very,
Okay.
very intelligent. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying just on simple terms. You don't have to call it Yahweh, you don't have to call it Allah, you don't have to call it whatever. But I can't wrap my mind around the rational thought to say this level of perfect imperfection. The reason why I say perfect imperfection is
Perfect.
because perfect imperfection,
Okay.
because space is chaotic. Even the way our Earth rotates, if that thing stop rotating, it's all coming
Sure.
apart.
But yeah, but it's not chaotic at
So,
all. It's very orderly.
yeah, that, I mean, for me, that makes my point even more valid. If something can be that orderly,
Mm-hmm.
something can be that, how can you say that it wasn't designed? How can you say so?
Well,
That's what. So wait. So let me say that. So that's
okay.
what that nothing is. That nothing is a colloquial term. When
Mm-hmm.
you hear, when I can't speak for everybody, I can only speak for me. When
Yeah.
I say that atheists believe that nothing created something, I'm using that nothing in a colloquial sense. That's really how I'm using. I'm saying like it had to be. It's designed. Your eyeball is designed too perfect for it just to
So
happen.
so I'll stay away from biology because that's not really my thing. I can't tell you a lot
Yeah.
about the eyeball. I can tell you a lot about the universe though.
Mhm.
So now when we're talking about like the order of the universe, like for instance, we're talking about like the way the Earth orbits the sun,
Right.
right? We can describe that very precisely. We were
Right.
able to do that for about 500 or 600 years. So we don't even need general relativity for that. Like
Okay.
Newton's equations are good enough for us to understand it.
Okay. And think
So
about and,
that,
wait, and let me slide in. Think about Newton, right?
sure.
Think
No,
the level of genius that Newton had. He had this genius before he was 27 years old.
yes, he also believed in a lot of pseudoscience as well. So
Yeah.
he had some
So
genius. He had far more nonsense in the genius that you have to dig
okay,
in deep, right?
but I
Because
need you to speak. Because I don't. I need you to help me. I want you to speak towards. I get the scientific aspect. What I'm
mhm,
trying to get the understanding is how, as intelligent as you are, how do you say that this stuff just happened and it wasn't designed?
it didn't just happen. It just followed the laws of physics. Like for instance, let's say you have I had a bunch of random objects in my hand, right? Like
Hmm.
hundreds of them, right? I had some lead balls, I had some tubes, I had some cups, I had some shoes, all kind of stuff, and I dropped it in the water. All of the things that are less dense than the water are going to float.
Hmm.
Everything that's more dense is going to sink.
Yep.
That's not random. That's physics. That's going to
Well,
happen every time I do that.
okay.
So the laws of physics are just happening, and they're very orderly. This isn't it's not like the universe was just like threw a bunch of cards and then bam and everything precisely happened. No, it followed the laws of physics. If this was to happen, if we were to restart the Big Bang, you would have everything pretty much happen exactly the way it did, right? So it started out as this really small ball of energy, right? It expanded first to about the size of a grapefruit, and then it shot out to the size of several galaxies really fast. Why to do that? We don't know. We're trying to figure that out. We have no idea why that happened.
So
Now,
just think
well,
about wait, wait. So
okay,
wait, because because you're very
okay,
smart. I'm
okay,
not as smart as you. So
okay.
let's slow it down a little bit. All
On
right.
this
And th-
topic, I
and that's
yeah,
not me being facetious. That's yeah. And like I said, you say some
I
words I ain't never
okay,
heard of, but I know what a grapefruit is.
okay, yeah,
All right. I know what
mhm.
that is. So let me process what you're saying, dog. So a grapefruit. We started as a grapefruit,
About the
and
size. So no, we start.
by the side of a grapefruit, and there's literally each human being. The numbers might be all, but each new human being can have like a trillion stars to themselves
Yeah.
from a grapefruit, bro.
Okay, okay. No, let's follow. Let's follow. Right, because it was just energy. It was really hot. Right now,
Okay.
it expanded. Right now, high frequency radiation, for some reason, tends to turn to matter. And that's what happened. Right? You have a lot of high frequency radiation, it'll turn into something like a quark.
Okay.
So in a standard model, you have these 16 particles, right? I'm not going to list all of them, but your matter are quarks and electrons, and your energy is what we call bosons, right? Now,
Mhm.
those bosons, it was pretty much just all light, right? Light that you see from the sun. it's a little particles, right? Called photons. Those high frequency photons changed into quarks, right? Those
Mhm.
quarks, you have two ups and a down quark, will turn into a proton. Two downs and an up turn into a neutron.
All right.
hmm Also, they were able to turn into electrons as well. Now, think about this. Think about what are stars made of? They're
I
made of
have no idea.
mostly hydrogen, right? There's like a lot of our stars now that we see now they're much they came about much later in
And
the universe.
we are made
So
of
the
stars too, right? Like
well,
stars
so,
are like
sort of,
okay.
but now I want to get to, it's like right after the Big Bang, there was a bunch of stars.
Mhm.
So right, so first the universe was too hot for matter to be created, to matter to exist. Once it cooled down enough, right, you were able to get quarks, and because of something called a gluon, it binded the quarks together, and we were able to get protons.
Okay.
Because of the photons, they were able to grab electrons. They were just followed. These are just physics. There's no intelligent mind needed, right? They're able to grab the electrons. Gravity pulls in all this matter together, all of this hydrogen together, and you know what you get? A star.
You're aware that all this sounds very intelligent, right?
I mean, yeah, but sure,
I mean,
sure,
you're
but
literally like you're literally saying like I can throw a bunch of colors on a canvas and get the Mona Lisa.
no,
That's
no,
how complex the universe is.
no, there's not. So at the beginning of the universe, it was very simple. There was just hydrogen. That's the only ingredient you need for a star.
Hmm.
And if the universe is just full of hydrogen with a little bit of helium, right, then you're going to have a bunch of stars.
Hmm.
So that made perfect sense, right? So you know what stars do, right? When they get really hot, and then eventually when they get really hot, they run out of fuel, they burst, right?
Is that the is that the supernova?
It's a supernova, and it
Okay.
scatters heavier elements all throughout the universe,
Okay.
such as iron, nickel, and other more complex elements.
So this is still sounding very intelligent, but I'm following you.
These are, it's just physics. Like, this is just
I
physics.
got, but think about the term. Think about what physics does, right? It's a beautiful thing. But
Sometimes,
imagine, well, yeah, of course, it can be dangerous too. But imagine the level of intellect that one cell is probably has more
well,
complexity in it than a computer
think
does.
about the beginning of the universe. So, what part of a star do you think requires intelligence?
I have no idea.
Right, like I don't see it at all. We Matter of fact, we can watch stars now. We can look at them at different stars at different points, and we can watch them still form. There's no intelligence required.
I got you,
Or
but
or you
follow,
all you
but
need is hydrogen and the four fundamental laws of physics.
follow
That's
what I'm
it.
saying, right? I I I get what you're saying, right?
hmm
But my struggle that I'm having with even for hydrogen just to exist
What part of
is just
hydrogen do
it's
you think
just
requires intelligence?
I have the fact that it's hydrogen is intelligent by itself. The fact that
But,
it
but
has the fact that it's a thing. Is hydrogen a thing? Would
so
you call it a thing?
it's harder higher than a what?
Would you call it a thing? Would you call hydrogen a thing?
Yeah, hydrogen is a thing.
Okay,
It's
so the
like one of the
fact that
most simplest things.
okay,
At
so the fact that it's a thing, it it it
but
has to have
okay, but think
a beginning.
so think about what we had from the Big Bang, the process that I explained. I skipped a bunch of stuff, but from the
Hmm.
Big Bang to hydrogen,
Yeah,
what part of that requires intelligence?
all of it, all of it.
What part? Okay, why would you think that intelligence is required to bond an electron to a nucleus?
Because every process that I've been listening to you, everything that you are explaining is ultimate examples of intellect, of design, not randomness.
Okay, so Think about our source of light, the sun.
Yeah,
It gives us cancer. You think that's
yeah.
intelligent?
But you can also have a picnic in it.
Yeah, at the expense of cancer.
Yeah, I
Is
get it. Yeah,
is that does that sound like it's intelligently designed?
absolutely. Let me show you. Let me give you my thinking on that. Right.
Okay.
That's just like one of the main questions that I get is why does bad things happen? Why do women get raped? Why are children starving? You know what I mean? These issues. And my answer to that I've researched and that I've reconciled for myself is that God is not a puppet master. He set forth a system. He allows the system to work with the physics, with the
Sure.
hydrogen. For there to be an earthquake, it has to
But
be on the fault line. Wait, let me finish. For there to
okay.
be an earthquake, it has to be a fault line. For it to rain, the negative, before to have lightning, the negative and positive charge, all that has to work together. So when I see these things, that's how I reconcile them.
Okay, but okay, so if you're gonna say something's intelligently designed, you're
Mhm.
just saying that because it's is something structured well, right? And work in an efficient manner. Like you wouldn't see something structured in like a very shitty way and be like, oh yeah, that was definitely intelligently designed,
No, I
right?
would. I probably wouldn't say it was intelligent design, but I say it was design. It's just a bad design.
Okay, can you give me an example of something you would say is not designed?
Something that's not designed.
Hmm.
Uh,
It doesn't seem like you
I
could,
can't.
because if you're
Yeah, I
gonna
can't.
if you're
Yeah, I
gonna
can't. I
say that
can't.
God
Yeah,
designed the
I can't.
entire universe, if you're gonna say that the entire
Yeah.
universe was intelligently designed, then you
So
couldn't
wait,
give an
wait.
example.
So
So
let's take look. Wait. Keep in mind, because I don't want to get lost in translation.
okay,
I don't need you to call it God.
no,
Remember, I said I
yeah,
wouldn't care if you called it a
let's
Care
remove God
Bear.
from the equation, but let's talk about
Right.
just
Forget
intelligent
God.
design here, right?
Just some
I just want there
this
is some
stuff,
sure,
something
but
had to do this.
okay, sure, okay. Can is there something that when you say something is intelligent design? Because when I was
Hmm.
describing the universe at like the infant in its infancy, you
Hmm.
were saying yes, that sounds intelligent. What a
Hmm.
part of that description I was giving you sounded intelligent? Why would you think that?
The very fact that if you can start something, if something starts as a grapefruit and you get the cosmos
It didn't
from
start.
that,
No, no, it didn't start as a grapefruit. It blew up to about the size of a grapefruit, and then it expanded to
okay.
several galaxies. So
So if something can start as the size of a grapefruit and give us the
what?
cosmos.
Okay, what size could it start for you to say that is not intelligently designed?
Oh, I mean, I can't. I'm still trying to answer the first question. I can't think of
For
anything that I would see. If
isn't
I
that
see a blade of
problematic?
grass, no, not for me. It's not. If I see a blade of
But
grass, if I see a blade of grass,
if
I'm still going to feel like that was designed.
if I okay, question for you. Let's say I look at something and I say a monkey must have made this, and you ask me why I think that. Like,
Hmm.
what is it about that design that makes me think that a monkey made it? And I was like, I don't know. And you asked
Hmm.
me, is there something you would say that a monkey didn't make? And I said no. So we have a problem here
Hmm.
because anything you see, you're automatically going to say a monkey made it, right? Or for me, right? So now
Yeah.
for you,
Hmm.
anything you see, you're going to say it's intelligently designed,
Hmm.
regardless of the properties that it have.
Yeah. Because even the properties,
But
you can't just like. I was eating sherbet. I love sherbet. I try to stay away from
sure,
ice cream. You know what I'm saying? Like that sherbet, nothing just exists.
we're not
Not,
saying
not,
anything,
not from
but get it. Like nobody's saying
good.
that nothing. Well, nobody's saying that there's something that just exists.
Okay.
Okay, so what I'm trying to get to is we have a problem and the way we identify things. So like for instance, if I
Hmm.
see I can, there's a lot of things that is capable of making stuff, right?
Hmm.
Ants, termites, beavers, monkeys, birds, humans, we all make things, right?
Right.
Now,
Right.
I could look at an object and look at its properties and determine whether or not it was made by a human or a bird or an ant
Okay. Okay.
because of the properties that it has, right? And you're able
Okay.
to do the same thing, right?
Hmm.
Okay. And I'll say, like, if it's made of twigs and it's high up on a tree, I would say a human could make that, but it's probably a bird,
It's probably a bird, right? Okay.
right? And
Hmm.
the reason we think that is because of the properties that we see it, right?
Hmm.
Because this nest has properties that resemble other things that we see that are made by birds,
Hmm.
right? If we were to see this pen, here's a plastic pen, I would say this is definitely made by a human. Why? Because it has properties that are indicative of things that we only see made by humans.
Hmm.
Mhm. So the way we identify whether something is designed is by looking at the properties that it has and determine are these properties only seen in other things that we know are designed.
Hmm.
Okay. If you say that something is intelligently designed, regardless of whatever properties it has, you have no basis for saying it's intelligently designed.
Tell me how you feel. I have no basis to say that.
Because I ask you, what are the properties of something that make you think is intelligently designed? You couldn't
Mhm.
tell me. And I asked you, what's something that you wouldn't say is intelligently designed? And you can't tell me that.
Yes, I still can't think of, and even air, in from my prayer view, is intelligently designed. I
Okay, so
can't think. I've been sitting here pondering. From matter of fact, let me ask you the same thing. What are you aware of that you can say, yeah, that wasn't designed?
stars.
That's amazing. That when you're able,
Star
that's
star.
amazing to me.
There
That's
is
one
nothing.
a
But here's the
star
thing.
is one
So
of the most amazing things
yes, and of
ever.
all the intelligence that we know of, none of the intelligence that we see are capable of making stars.
That's the so that brings me right.
Mhm.
So that brings me. So when I have this conversation, I say when I science is a beautiful thing. I love science. We use the science right now to be able to communicate. I'm in Houston and you're in Washington D.C. So science is amazing. But to make that statement that when you make that statement, I process what you're saying when you say a star. A, s- a star is so vast. It's how can you see
You
that
said it's
and still
vast. What size would the star have to be for you to say that it's not intelligently designed?
it wouldn't I mean the
Then
size
it's
doesn't
then the
matter.
vastness doesn't matter. So let's throw
But no,
that
I'm
out.
just well, guys, we'll throw
But,
it out. I mean the
yeah,
star
let's throw it
let's
out.
just say it's
Okay.
amazing.
What? Yeah.
That's
So
so amazing. You know what
okay.
I'm saying?
Okay. What is it about it that makes you think it's amazing?
The f- the fact that it twinkles. Let's keep it simple.
Okay. So let's say it. Okay. So not
Yeah,
all stars twinkle.
right. So let's talk about the ones that twinkle.
Okay. So no.
That's amazing.
Let's talk about the ones that don't.
Okay.
Right. Let's throw out the twinkle ones. You say the stars that don't twinkle, are they
Mhm.
not designed?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So the
They're
twinkleness
they're
has
they're
no.
they're
Hold on.
they're
Well, hold on.
designed. They're
Hold on.
designed not to twinkle.
Okay, hold on. Okay, hold on. So whether it twinkles or not, it has nothing to do. Has no bearing on whether it's intelligently designed. Because you said both twinkling and non-twinkling stars are designed. So let's throw that out. So let's throw out size. Let's throw out twinkling. What now? What else can you name that give that makes it indicative of intelligent design?
Well, I can't. I mean, again, I can't sit here and list all the properties of a star because I have no
You don't
clue
have to list
about
all
how
the properties
stars.
of the
Yeah, I don't
star.
know. Just so I'm gonna
What?
just because you're asking me a question, I can't answer. I don't know how stars work. I've never studied stars. I've
Hey, so
never cared
gifted.
to.
So it's the question.
Yeah,
So you said you
yeah,
don't know how stars work. You never really studied
right,
them.
right.
That being said, why would you think it's intelligently designed?
The same reason why I think this spoon is intelligent design. The same way I think these AirPods is intelligent design. The same way I think my
Okay,
hand
what?
is intelligent
Why?
design.
Why do you? Okay, why do you think your AirPods are intelligently designed?
That's a silly question. I mean, that's
No,
okay.
no, I'm
That's
it's I know that I have an answer to that question, but I want to
why
know
did you
your
ask? Yeah,
answer.
don't. Let's not do rhetorical because we both got better things to be doing.
No,
Tell me.
it's a good point because like no, so I have a methodology for determining intelligent from non-intelligent design things.
Okay, give it to me.
I'm trying to understand yours.
So I mean, I can't. So I'm come again. I'm not a scientist, bro. That's not
So think
how.
about this.
So
So
so look, when I started with cell phones, right?
mhm.
I had my cell phone was this big when I was coming up young, right? The headphones came in had wires. Now we have AirPods, no wires. That's intelligent to me. It's that simple.
Okay,
You know what
all
I'm
right.
saying?
So all right. Now remember the human, bird, beaver, monkey example I gave you,
Hmm.
and termites, right? Now,
Yeah.
you see a dam, right, full of sticks, mud, and all that kind of stuff, and it's clogging up a river. What do you think made it?
I would say a beaver
Why would you think a beaver made it?
because that's what beavers do. They make dams.
Right. So we know beaver. So we have an example of a beaver making a dam. You
Hmm.
see an object that looks identical to what we know beavers make,
Hmm.
and you say, "Hi, this must have been made by a beaver." Right?
Okay.
Let's say you see a little hill in the ground with a hole in it, right? With like complex tunnels and stuff inside. What made that? You think of
Uh, several things can make that, but
like
I
what?
get your point. Crawfish.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because you know crawfish could do that, right? Right,
Right.
ant, right? Okay,
Right.
so the point I'm getting at is what you're doing is you're looking you're looking at things that you know to be designed by certain things,
Okay.
right? So you look, we talked about a dam. You know, you have tons of examples of beavers building dams. So you look at
Hmm.
this specific dam, and you say a beaver made this. Let's say you see another dam and it's huge, 10 miles long, made of concrete and electricity's power lines coming on.
Hmm.
You think a beaver made that?
Of course not,
Why not?
because beavers don't have that capability.
Right? You've never seen that, right? Only humans were able to produce that, right?
Right. You know, you're kind of
Let-
making my point here, right?
okay,
But
no,
I'm
no, no,
following
no,
you.
no, no, no. Okay, now.
I'm following you.
Okay, now, what example do we have of something making a star?
Bro, we don't have that example. That doesn't exist.
Exactly. So right,
We
sure.
don't
So
have
the
that
fact,
example.
but exactly that's the
We
point that I'm
can't. We,
making.
we can't make a planet.
Exactly. So here's the thing. So there is no example of intelligence that we know of that are capable of producing stars.
But when you're,
So when we
but when
see a star, we would not infer that it was intelligently designed.
But when you do, see, when you, yeah, that's where I guess on that we will have to just agree to disagree because that's not rational to me. I watch you. You went from an ant to a beaver to humans, all the way to something that a human cannot do. So
Right.
that so wait. So we can look at the ant farm, we can look at the dam, we can look at the bird nest, we can look at an airplane, we can look at the 10-mile dam, we can look at the space station. We can do that and say, okay, boom, 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 boom. But you're going to get to a point to where it's like, whoa, can't explain that.
Yeah. Great.
So you
Great. You
so
did.
you're
You
telling
said
me, so
that
wait,
was
so wait,
magic.
let
What
me
you said.
right.
You
So let
said,
me, and we're not talking about God and the gaps, just in case you're
but
about
get,
to make that left. We're not
but
talking about that.
I,
So
no,
wait,
no, no.
let me make this last point. Are
Okay.
you telling me that from your thinking that the sun is not as intelligent as a beaver making a dam with some sticks and some grass? You telling me you
No.
can look at that and say, "Oh wow, that's intelligent design," because beavers do that. But you look at the sun and say that just happened. Nobody
So
did that.
if there was some underlying law of physics that we knew of, where where dams could compose on their own, then I would say perhaps no one made it. It just came that way through the laws of physics. That's the identical position that a star is in. We know of laws that are in place where stars can just come about naturally with no intelligence whatsoever.
So
So
that leads me to believe. Are you atheist? Or are you agnostic?
I'm an atheist. So, but let's. I want to stay on topic here. You had said earlier we can get to a point where we're going to say something is unexplained.
Right. We
Right.
don't have the mindset to say, okay, if that was
Right. So
intelligent, something
if
that
it
what designed that.
so since it's unexplained, what can we say about its origin if we don't have an explanation?
So that's where the divide happens, right? That's where for me, I call it God. But I would never tell
So
anybody else. Wait, wait,
what
wait,
you
wait, 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 wait,
describe,
wait, wait. Don't
okay,
wait, don't jump on that. Wait, wait, hold
okay.
up. I would never put that on anybody else. My issue is the very fact that atheists can say that all that just happened. The cosmos just happened. There's
Remember,
nothing in.
remember, but gift. So remember, I just explained right at the beginning of that episode. Atheists don't believe that. I
But you can't
described to
say
you the
that. I've
process.
seen, but I've been listen. I've been doing this for a
Hey,
long time. Just like I'm sure you have too. You
okay,
can't say atheists don't say that because
okay,
they
but
do. I,
remember,
I can put it up.
I walked you through the lambda CDM model. I got you from Big Bang all the way to stars, right? So this isn't just it just happened.
Richard Dawkins says that all that stuff just happened,
Richard Dawkins is a evolutionary biologist.
and that's extremely intelligent, right? Extremely.
It has not okay, it has nothing to do with physics. And,
Okay, so wait, 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 wait.
even
Keep it,
Richard
wait,
Dawkins does not
but
believe
wait,
this.
because I want to make sure that we got some foundation. Big dog, I wouldn't agree to talk to you about nothing but physics because I'm not a science. I don't even like science like that. So my
Sure,
my
but
conversation with you was just eight. So that's biology, that's morality, that's
right, but
all of these. So I don't want we. It's been 40 minutes and we still talking about stars.
right,
That's
but
not. I can't. That ain't my.
so so we're on stars as kind of an example here. Now
Yeah.
you had said no, I had asked you if we see something that's unexplained, what do we
Mhm.
say about its origin? And you said God.
That's what I call it. But you
That
don't have
is
to do that.
okay. No. But here's the thing. That is literally God of the gaps. That is the gaps fallacy.
It's
That is
not. But
the
see,
quintessential example of
that,
the
that,
gaps
that's that,
fallacy.
that's why I told you.
I don't understand something. God.
Right. So but keep in mind though, the beautiful thing about I'm not speaking for everybody. That's why I asked you who are you speaking for? You said you're speaking for yourself, right? So
Yeah.
for me, I'm not rigid on that. That's why I told you you don't have to call it God. I don't care what you call it. I'm
Well,
trying to understand the mindset where you can see something as awesome as the cosmos and say all that awesomeness
but the
just happened.
but hey, but gift remember the awesomeness has nothing to do with it because you said everything j- by the mere fact that it exists, you would say it's intelligently designed, whether it's awesome or not.
But that seems disingenuous. So when you're telling me if you look at an ant farm, you wouldn't say that's amazing?
I mean, maybe, but whether it's intelligently designed, uh, if I knew that ants existed and were capable of making that, then I would have enough information
So
to
our
say that this is intelligently designed
so
by an
our
ant.
thinking our thinking is extremely limited, right? We only know what we know. All right. There's a
Mhm.
space to where say something as simple as love, our emotions. We can't really say where that stuff comes from, right? So it's
Brain.
but we only use what 8% of our brain. You know what I'm saying?
No,
So
that's false.
but what's do we use? Let's make it
We
easy. Do we use
use
100% of our brain? Yes or
yeah
no?
yeah
We do not use 100% of our
from
brain,
what
dog.
I okay
That's come
from
on
what
now. Don't do
okay
that.
so I'm not a neurologist but
Yeah, we don't.
I looked at a lot of brain I looked at did a lot of brain studies. I was looking at scans and
Yeah.
having and when people do things the entire brain seems to be light and being
Well,
lit
that's
up.
that's cool, but I would literally bet my life. I put my life on the line to say we don't even use 20% of our brains. Let's see the end of that.
Okay,
Yeah, I want to get yeah. Let's see
I
the end
bet
of
you
that.
I challenge you to find a single scientific study that says that. You send it to
Just
me later.
I mean, we both got access to the internet. That ain't you know what I'm
Yes,
saying?
look one
Yeah,
up. I
yeah.
think
So
that's
we
total
but
nonsense.
that's cool. That's cool. So what I'm saying is when I If I see, let's see, what's the StreamYard, right? I think StreamYard is absolutely amazing. So when I see StreamYard, the functionality of it, my intellect tells me, wow, this is cool, this is well designed. And I can do that over and over and over again. I'm trying to
But we know,
understand.
but his, do we know a StreamYard is intelligently designed because software doesn't come about naturally.
Right, yeah, it has to be created. Right.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to
But
show you, I'm trying to show you my
that's
thinking. Wait,
that's
I'm trying to show you my thinking. So
okay.
when we look at that's we did enough of the cosmos. Now let's do something else. Let's talk about us. We both have bodies, right? When we look at the very fact that if I cut myself, if I'm functioning properly, right, my brain's going to send a signal to that area where I cut. The blood's going to clot. A scab is going to form. If I don't disturb the scab, that scab is going to fall off, and then my skin is going to literally grow back. It may leave a scar, but it's going to grow back.
Mhm.
You're saying that's not intelligently designed?
I don't see any reason to think that's intelligently designed.
That's amazing to me.
I mean, you could
You can
call
see
it
a beaver.
amazing, but
Wait, you can see a
forgive.
beaver create a
So,
dam and say that's intelligent. But when you see the way your body works, you don't think that's intelligent?
but do you know why?
No, help me out.
Because when I see a beaver dam, like I know, when I see dams, they have certain properties.
Yeah.
I know that they are that is indicative of beavers because I know beavers create them.
Mhm.
When I see the human body, I know that it comes about naturally. It grows it grows in the bell it grows in,
You're
that's
s-
like doing things or playing with
you're
DNA.
saying you're so you don't think there's intelligent design for your brain or for your
But
eyeball or for your
so
tonsils?
just the problem is, see, you can keep naming things, and then when I say no, you can say, "Ah, that's amazing that you think that." But
Yeah.
it if you can't give some sort of epistemology, some sort of
Hmm.
method to where you can determine design and undesigned things, then it makes no sense. Imagine you're a cop, right? You're investigating deaths. You want to know a murder, and you want to know something that a death that occurred naturally,
Yeah.
right? Now, let's say this cop is saying, "Here's his body. It was definitely murdered, and you're the murderer." Right
Hmm.
now, this cop is on a witness stand. You're doing a cross examination, and you ask the cop, what how do you distinguish a murder from a natural death? And he
Hmm.
says, I don't know, but Gifted did it.
You can't do it without evidence.
What's the evidence?
Right. So
So but
I don't understand what you're
you'll be
asking.
look
What's
you be
what's the
okay.
evidence of what? Tell
So
me what are you
so so
specific
you
answer?
so a cop found a dead body.
Yeah.
He says you murdered him.
Yeah. He needs
Now
to prove that.
the
Right.
cop's on the stand. He's asking, how
Okay.
do you distinguish a murder from a death that occurred naturally? And the cop says he doesn't know, but Gifted did it.
Right. That wouldn't be sufficient. You need to prove it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, when you see something in the universe and you say, "What is it about this object that? How do you know a design thing versus an undesigned thing?"
Hmm.
And you say, "I don't know, but it was designed." Is that appropriate?
Yes.
No, but it's the same. It's the same
No,
analogy
no,
that I
no.
just gave you.
Let me show
It's
you. Let me show you.
functionally
Wait.
equivalent.
That's. Let me show you how that doesn't hold water. Right. If we're doing a murder trial in the analogy that you created, there's levels of steps that detective is going to have to do to prove that I was the murderer. You need my fingerprints, blood sample, hair sample, video,
Sure. But
eyewitness, which is question. Wait. You
I'm
gotta, yeah.
with you. So I'm
Okay,
with you.
so wait.
And
I'm going to
okay,
entertain the example that you gave. So I'm using that same logic, right? When
you're
I
not.
look at that,
You're
let
not
me show
using
you
this.
how. Wait,
Okay.
let me show you how I am. if I when I look at the cosmos, or if I look at the biology of my body, right? I can call it science because science means to know. Science is ever evolving, it's always trying to disprove itself. That's why you can trust it. Doesn't make science so beautiful. The scientific fact is not a fact
But
that doesn't
sure,
change.
but
It's that's wait,
let,
that's what science
let's
does. So
okay.
whether I call it science or whether I call it God, I still don't know. I still don't know. I can't prove God to you, just like you
Okay,
can't
okay,
prove science to me like that.
hold on, hold on, hold
Mhm.
on. All right, so we have two people. You have you, we have a cop on a witness
Yeah.
stand, right? So now you talked about how the cop, if he's going to show that you committed a murder, there's a bunch of things he's going to have to prove, right? At
Mhm.
minimum, he's going to need a methodology to show that a murder actually happened. He's going
Yeah.
to have some methodology that can distinguish a murder from a natural death.
Yeah.
At minimum, before he can even say that you did it, have to at least
Mhm.
prove that a murder happened,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah.
if let's say there's a bullet in his head, right?
Mhm.
Bullets don't just naturally evolve in a person's brain,
Right.
right? Somebody has
Right.
to put it there, right?
Right.
Okay, so he could describe that. Now,
Mhm.
so just like when we asked the cop, how do you distinguish a murdered corpse from a corpse that died naturally? I am asking you, how do you distinguish something from was intelligently designed and not intelligently designed? You criticized the fictional cop because he couldn't give a methodology. I'm
Mhm.
asking you for the methodology,
But
and you cannot
I
give
guess I'm doing I guess I'm well, don't say I
me
can't
one.
do it. I'm just
That
not.
is
I'm because
problematic.
in my head I feel like I am doing that, but evidently I'm not communicating that the right way. So let me reprocess. And so this is what I'm saying. I know what design is based off of what my intellect has taught me what design is when I first heard the
Okay,
word.
so then
All right. That's all
let's
I
look at
that's
some
wait, yeah,
let's
go
look
ahead.
at something. Let's talk about like a let's go back to the star. All right, or any let's
No,
just
no,
use the
no, no,
star
no, no,
because
no more sauce. No more sauce. No more sauce.
okay,
Let's
a
talk
moon.
about something as simple as an envelope. Forget the moon. Let's talk about something as simple as this. This is simple. This is
Mhm.
simple.
So
My
what?
brain tells me this was designed. Somebody designed, what I'm saying, this
Okay, what's
functionality. That's what my
sure
brain
your
tells me. Wait,
your brain
hey, we
tells
can't
you that.
wait, we can't listen,
That
listen.
that's
We
fine.
can't have a conversation like this. It's not gonna work. I understand
Okay,
you're very
all right.
intelligent, but let me get it out. You know what I'm saying? So, because I'm trying to tell you how I think. So also just FYI, I have a master's in education. And so yeah, I'm not one, you know what I'm saying? So let me process what I'm saying.
I'm not
Yeah, I'm
saying
just
you're
making
stupid or I
sure,
think you're
like,
stupid.
I got you. I just wanted to just put that out there. So let me finish saying what I'm saying. So this is what teaches me this is designed. This is designed. And why do I know? How can I recognize something is designed? Because all my life I've been taught, hey, this is what design looks like, right?
Okay.
So the same way, giving your example, if I look at the dam by the beaver, okay, that was designed. If I look at the
Mhm.
dam by a human, that was designed. If I look at a murder and he's showing me that this was a heart attack, okay, I see that. This was a bullet wound, okay, I see that. All the way to the way that our tonsils function. Well, that's all that I have. My
Okay.
tonsils, I don't look at my tonsils and say they wasn't designed.
Sure. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I know that because you don't look at anything and say that it wasn't designed. So
Right.
so so now we have a problem
Mhm.
because what if the cop says he doesn't look at every corpse he sees, he assume it was murdered.
Yeah, that would be a problem. That would be problematic.
Okay, that's okay. That is functionally equivalent to what you're doing. You're looking at
No, it's
every
no, no.
single
I don't know
thing.
why. That's kind of like a red
You just
herring. You're creating.
you
Listen,
just
we
well,
wait. Let's slow down. We are distinguishing. We can look at what a beaver did, and say, okay, a beaver did that. Then we can look at what a human did and say, oh, a human did that. That's the exact same way that that cop would have to look at. Okay, this was natural causes. Okay, this was a murder.
that's not what's going on. So when I use
What
the
do you
human,
mean?
it's not. So when I use the human
Okay,
and the beaver an example, right? The way we know that is through the methodology that I referenced. The method is by we have examples of humans building things. We have examples of beaver building things. We know what things that are built by beavers look like. We
And
can
we know
list
how
their
people
properties.
die, right? We know how people die.
There are multiple ways that people die.
Right. So
Right. Okay.
so
No,
from
but no, hold on. But get
experience, I
but
can
get
say this is a
no,
heart
but
attack and this is a
this
gunshot.
right now. No. Hold on. If you say that everything you see in the universe is designed, is equivalent to saying everything in it, everybody was murdered.
No, it's not.
Okay.
You can't say
Can you give
how can you
me
intelligence say that a heart attack is the same thing as a
I w- I
gunshot?
w- I wouldn't. I wouldn't say it's the same
Mind you, I've
thing.
been shot
But
in
I'm
my
still.
face.
But look, listen. Look, I wouldn't say it's the same thing. I'm saying in the analogy, you would have to assume that if he uses your methodology, you
Mhm.
would assume that every corpse is murdered. Can you here's the
No, that is
proof.
not
Look,
true. I don't know why you keep saying that. That's
here's
not
the
true.
proof. Can you give
But
me an example of something that is not intelligently designed?
I told you I can't. Now we going backwards. Let's not.
But
We got
but
past that.
no,
I
it's
can't.
not backwards.
I,
It's
I can't
directly
think of.
analogous.
Listen. I'm
So,
answering it for you. I can't think of anything right now in my head. I've been trying to do it for an hour now since you asked me that. I
mhm.
cannot think of anything that was not designed.
Okay, so now,
Nothing.
so, okay, so
And I asked you the same
okay,
thing, and you haven't given it to me.
a star. I gave you a bunch of things: stars, planets, moons, human body, beavers, trees. There's just plenty of things I can just list, ramble off. I can tell you that was not intelligently designed because I can
You're
tell you
saying
how
a
those things come about.
tree? Wait, you're saying that there's nothing intelligent about a tree? You
Trees.
serious?
I said trees are naturally occurring. We don't have any gift. Listen, okay. Think about this. Remember,
You're saying
if
tree. Wait. I want to make sure
if
because I don't want to
I
misunderstand you.
said the
You're
word
saying that
tree,
a
T R E
tree
E. But
is
listen,
not intelligently designed.
yes,
You don't
yes,
think a
no.
tree is intelligent?
So trees are not intelligent, but that's not the question you asked. You asked if trees are intelligently designed. Now, remember the methodology that I gave you, right? What you do is you look at an object and see if you
Mhm.
have any examples of its origin. All the trees that we know of, they come about naturally. People don't put matter together, atoms together, and make trees, right? That's not how trees occur. That we know how stars occur. And people cannot make stars. There is no intelligence we know of that is capable of making stars. When we see dams, we know because of the property of the dams, we know that there are certain things that are capable of making those dams. If it's
But
made of mud, leaves, grass, and wood and sticks and stuff, it's probably made by a beaver. If it's made by concrete, and with lights and electricity and power plants on it, it's probably made by humans. We know that because we have tons of examples of humans making those things. We have tons of examples of beavers making dams made of mud and sticks. We have no example of an intelligence making a star, of an intelligence making an atom, making a moon, making a planet. That is the methodology that I'm asking of you.
so are you saying that because we don't know the methodology that makes it unintelligent?
Since you I'm saying because you can't give me a methodology, you can't say whether something's intelligently designed.
So define. So tell me how you define intelligent. I
There's
think
a
maybe that's where we're getting lost in translation.
there's a mind, whether a human, animal, or whatever, that puts something together and make it.
Okay, I agree. So let's say the pyramids, right? That's a great mystery, right?
No, we know
It's all
Egyptians built them. That's not a mystery.
I don't some that when you say that, that brings me to the brain thing. The Egyptians did it, but there's some of those blocks. There's no way
We know
those
exactly how
blocks
that
can
was.
be moved. That
We
is
know
not true.
exactly that
You're
is
saying that like that's
true.
a fact. Uh,
That is a fact. We
It's
know
not.
the
That's not a
pulleys
fact.
existed.
That is not
Okay,
that we have been trying to we've been trying to
gifted.
re-engineer
So
how those people. Well, you know what? Let's not do that. Forget I say
gifted.
pyramid. Let's not do
Somebody
that.
else on the show came up and said that. My co-host pulled up in the study and showed
I,
exactly how the people could have built the
I
pyramids.
can put it up, but the
It-
same. But you got to be careful with that because we can put up leprechauns and somebody will show you that there's a leprechaun. So just because this somebody can put it up, this is something that I
Okay.
do. Like I love. But that's not getting lost in that. Forget pyramids. Forget I even say that. So let's just keep it simple. Something that we live with every day ourselves. So I agree. I believe that I would give anything intellect if it has a mind behind it, right? So here's another example that I always give.
But we don't need
I'm,
another
s-
example. I want an example of something that
oh,
was designed, that something that
I don't.
exists that
Yeah,
did
I
not
don't.
require a mind to make.
I believe that everything required. I believe everything was designed from a blade of grass to that star that you're saying just happened. I believe that it was designed.
Okay, I know you believe that, and you've made that very clear. But
Yeah.
what I'm asking is why. So just like you ask me why do, if I see a dam, why would I
Okay.
think a beaver made it? I can
So.
explain, but get heard. I want to
Mhm.
get on my question here. Just
Okay.
like you asked me if you would point to a dam made of
Mhm.
wood, logs, and leaves and grass. You asked me why do I think a beaver did that? I can explain to you the methodology.
Mhm.
All right, because we have tons of examples of beavers making that. Right.
Mhm.
That is the approach. Right. Do you disagree with that approach?
No, no, no. Of course not. No,
Okay. Is there another approach that I should use?
no. That's the best approach that we
That's the
have.
best one, right? Okay,
Right.
now, so we see the moon.
Mhm.
What's your approach for thinking the moon is a design? It was intelligently designed. You're using my approach. So, because the approach that I have is I looked at other examples of beavers
But you're
making that.
take
Do you
right,
have
but
an example of someone making a moon?
right. No, I do not. No, no.
Right. Okay. So now, but since you don't have an example of that, and you
Mhm.
agreed that that approach is the not only the best one, but the only one. That's all you need.
Yeah.
If you acknowledge that you don't have an example of someone making a moon, then
Mhm.
would it be logically absurd to think that the moon was intelligently designed?
No.
That's how logic works.
I don't
You
know. No,
have to.
that's
That's
no, no,
how
no, no.
it logically
That's
follows.
not. So and I guess that's where I don't know. Maybe that's where we're going to have to agree to disagree. Because when you say that, here's what I hear you asking me to do. You're asking me to look at a beaver's dam, going back there, and call that intelligent design because I know a beaver did it. Then to look at a spaceship, right, and say, okay,
I
that's
didn't say
intelligent design.
spaceship. I said
I'm just,
moon.
I'm just, I'm just throwing that in. I'm getting there.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm going from a beaver to human. That's what I'm doing. So
Mhm.
we know that that spaceship had to be designed because we
Why would we,
understand
why would we know that?
because we know humans create things. We know that's what a human do. We know a beaver
Right.
not gonna build a space station.
Right. And
So
we know space stations don't just naturally occur, right? Like
say
it's
again.
not like space stations don't naturally occur.
Oh,
It's
yeah, yeah,
not
no,
like
no, right, no, yeah,
like a
right, right,
supernova doesn't happen, then a space station fly out.
right, no, no, right, yeah,
Right.
that's
So
yeah, it's all put
but
together.
but but what if
So
but what if
wait,
this what
I'm
if
getting,
this
I'm getting to your answer. So
okay.
now I'm at the moon. There's no way, although I have no example of a human or even an alien, or even a god creating the moon. I have no examples of either thing happening, right?
Mhm.
But I do, me personally, because they got some people saying the moon not even real. That's a whole other conversation. So we I can look at that moon and base just like I look at the Beaver's Dam, the human space station, this baseball cap, my Apple Watch. I'm looking at that moon and say, hey, I don't know what did it, but something did it.
Wow, okay, no. You said something did it. I agree something did it as well.
Hmm.
Okay. Why do you think why do you think it was intelligent? That's what I want to know because we all agree something did it.
Yeah.
You think it was
Well,
something
I
intelligent.
mean, because see, for me to call it, so I guess that the use of intelligent probably is what's making the conversation difficult because
That's what
I'm
this is all
applying
about.
it, right. I'm applying it to everything. You know what I'm saying? I'm applying
That,
right intellect
that
to everything. I don't know. What do I know about the moon? I know the moon has something to do with tides, right?
yeah.
Am I correct with that?
Yep.
So to me, again, I don't know the functionality of the moon. You know what I'm saying? I know it doesn't give light. I know the moon gets light from the sun. I know all that, but that's one thing I do know about the moon. It dictates tides. That seems intelligent to me. It doesn't seem
Why? Well, okay,
happenstance.
but no, no. Why do
That's
you
all
think that was intelligent?
I can't answer the same
Well,
reason why I look at the
well,
beaver
well
dam and
okay,
say that's
but
intelligent.
but no. You drew a comparison between the moon and tides. Okay,
Yeah.
what is it about tides that you think the moon is intelligent? Well, you think tides will go away?
But I can't. I mean, I can't. There's no way I can intellectually. I don't even know how that works, bro. I don't. I don't do
Right.
maritime. Yeah, that's
But
not.
if you
Yeah,
don't know how it works, then why are you saying it's intelligently designed?
the same reason why I don't know how a beaver builds a dam, but I don't know how ants have a whole kingdom with a queen and workers and soldiers. I'm not an ant. I can't ask an ant that question, but I can
But
look at it and say that's intelligent. The question
no,
seems like a very asinine question that you're asking me. And
the
that's
the
not insult. I
question
don't get it.
the qu- so the I'm asking you that question because that's kind of like the topic like of the show,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So you say the universe intelligently designed, and
Yeah.
I say I don't see any evidence of that, right? And I'm asking you why you think the way you do.
So
I'm
that,
asking
okay.
you
So
because
so so
that's
I'm
it's
not. I'm
literally the
not.
topic of the show. It's not
I got you.
asinine. That's
So let's back up. What happens if the moon wasn't there?
we won't have a moon anymore.
So what? How does that affect Earth? Is what I'm saying.
I mean, so there'd be the orbit around the sun would slightly change because there's nothing tugging on us. I mean, it wouldn't have, it's not like life would die, not that I know of.
Because I thought the moon had something to do with the gravitational pull. I thought if the
There's
moon,
a the
if
moon
the moon,
tugs on the
if the,
earth.
if the moon got closer to us, the Earth would no longer exist.
Well, yeah, if the moon crashed into the earth, yeah.
No, not even crash. If it came closer to Earth, we'll have some serious problems on this planet.
Well, with some tides, yeah. That doesn't mean life would disappear.
Okay, so forget. So same question for the sun. What happens if we didn't have the sun? What happens to us as life?
Life would probably die.
So you don't think there's intelligence for that to be there?
No, because there are what 7 septillion stars. So remember what I described to you, the stars. The sun is a star.
Right.
I've walked you from the Big Bang to stars.
But we don't get no energy from them seven criteria. I don't even know what that number is. We don't get that. That has nothing to do with Earth. I'm talking about
Right.
us and that
So
sun.
okay.
So if
So
that sun,
what?
if we don't have that sun, what happens to
Right.
us?
Right. Do you understand? Do you know how planets form?
I do not. I have no
Okay.
clue.
All right. So planets form from the accretion disk of stars. So right. So when a hydrogen pulls in close and that nuclear fusion initially starts, there's like a large push. It pushed excessive matter out away from the sun, right? And it creates this accretion disk. And through gravity, the accretion disk eventually begins to form a planet, right? From several planets. All of our planets. That's why all our planets are in the same plane because they're made from the same accretion disk. So the only place you would find a planet is near a star. Where
And
ex- where exactly
that doesn't sound intelligent to you.
where else would you expect to find a planet?
Wait, that doesn't sound intelligent to you. You're describing a
Yeah,
superior level of
yeah.
intellect, calling it unintelligent.
So I didn't describe a level of imperial intellect. I describe physics. I'm asking you, what part of that makes you think is intelligent? Okay, so okay, then I'm gonna use a big word here, stellar nucleosynthesis, right?
Okay.
It's just when if a star creates new elements. It takes hydrogen, puts it together, and makes helium, right?
Sounds
That
pretty intelligent to me.
why do you think that's intelligent?
If if this that's we can do that all day long. We can do
I
that for the
didn't hear
next
an
four
answer to the
hours.
I didn't hear an answer to the question. You
Because
didn't
of my
answer it.
understanding, because of my understanding, I've answered it several different ways. That's my. This is a spoon. right? It's nothing
No,
to a
no, no.
spoon,
Hold on.
but it's very intelligent.
Gifted. Let's forget
This is
spoons.
intelligently
Gifted.
designed.
Gifted. Forget spoons. When
Okay,
we
so you're not so just
but
because
gifted. No, I
if
want
you
you. But
don't like
gifted. I want you to
you
answer
can't.
my question.
I'm trying to
But
listen. I'm
you're
trying to
not.
answer it, but you're
Spoons.
not accepting my answer.
Spoons have
And
nothing
there's
to do.
nothing. There's yes, it does because something intelligent designed this. How do I know? If you say gifted, how do you know that the spoon is intelligent designed? Right? If you ask me gifted, how do you know that that
If I
microphone
were
is
to,
intelligent
but
design?
gifted. If I were to
It's
ask
all that
you,
we know.
gifted. If
Mhm.
I were to ask you about the spoon, it would make perfect sense for you to explain why you thought the spoon was intelligently designed. I'm not asking about the spoon. I'm asking about the process that the sun uses to power itself. When it takes two hydrogen atoms,
Yeah.
push them together, and make helium. You call that intelligent. I'm asking,
Intelligence. When you tell
why do you think
the
that?
the same way I can tell you one plus one is two. That's just my that's my understanding of what intellect is. That there's no real answer to that. You
There is.
tell you tell
It,
me wait no wait let's reverse it because that's we just wasting time with that.
mhm.
Why do you call that unintelligent?
Because we see it happen, and there's no intelligence anywhere near it.
But it's a perfect harmony.
It's not a perfect harmony. A lot of times it doesn't happen.
It wouldn't have but a lot of
A
times it
lot of times it
happens though.
A lot of times it does, sometimes it doesn't.
Wait,
You call it a
wait. So no, 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 no,
no,
don't do that.
forget
You
it.
can't have it.
You
You
call
can't have
you
it both
call it a
ways.
you call it a perfect harmony, and that was
It's a
false. That was
per.
categorically false. And the reason why you said that is because you didn't know enough about it. And since you don't know enough about
Yeah.
it, how in the name of common sense can you call it intelligent
So
design?
let me show.
That's the point that I'm
Okay.
talking about.
So that's
That
all
is
right.
God of the gaps.
So watch this. Take intelligent off. Let's just deal with design. You just told me planet was formed. That's harmony. Harmony means things coming together, making something happen, right?
It's not harmony. So the way the planets became the way the planets formed was a very chaotic process, actually.
That's why I
So
call it the perfect imperfection. Those imperfect things
so
came together to make
okay.
something perfect.
The Earth. What do you mean the Earth? So what do you mean this is perfect?
Those
The Earth,
imperfect
like I said,
things.
first of all, the Earth is not perfect. It's not even perfect for us. Like as I said earlier, our source of energy gives us cancer. Our source of life kills us. That's not intelligent.
That's
If I was
actually
designed, no, no, hold on,
that's the
gifted,
ultimate
hold on,
intelligence.
gifted, hold on. Look, look. I'm a computer engineer. Okay,
Okay.
I design things. I design a bunch of stuff. I get paid a lot of money for doing it. Mm.
Hmm.
If I was to design a toy for my daughter, I, I'm a loving, intelligent father. I'm not going
Hmm.
to design a toy that could kill her.
Hmm.
That would be stupid. That
Hmm.
would show if I had the best intentions, that would show that it was unintelligently designed. I would show poor design.
Hmm.
If her source of fun would kill her. Our source of
Okay.
energy can kill us.
Okay.
That is not intelligent.
So that brings
Only
us.
something stupid would make the sun the way it is.
That brings us to a pivot, right? Now we can have a philosophical conversation. So that's a great point, right? So just because I use that example all the time, life is not fair. And what I mean by that is the sun. You can have a picnic, you can go swimming, you can have a great time in the sun. But if you get trapped in the Sahara Desert, that same sun is going to kill you
Mhm.
1,000%. So when you say that, I do not disagree with that.
Yeah, and
I
you don't
don't
have to
even.
get trapped in the Sahara Desert. By the way, you can be having a
You
picnic.
get trapped. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
you
You be
can
having a
get
picnic.
cancer.
Yeah, yeah. Facts. So
Hmm.
there's no way that I would dispute that. That's why if you remember in the beginning of the conversation, we have to deal with the question on. I have 6 kids, 3 boys and 3 girls. We have to deal with the question of why does one girl get raped and another one gets protected? Why there's children starving, other children eating? You know what I'm saying? Like because if something was like you said, if I'm creating something for my children, I'm going to create it with the ultimate safeguards to where nothing would ever happen to them. As a matter of fact, I'm taking death smooth off the table because I don't even want you to die. Can we agree on that? If
Yeah,
I'm
I
the
mean,
father
if
creating something for my child,
sure,
because I love what you say.
sure,
You're a
I
designer.
yeah, I think, but I think we're getting off topic here because
How?
it sounds like we're talking about why does God allow suffering or why does God allow evil?
Well, that's why I said I wanted to pivot into something philosophical. So you wanted because I didn't know
Okay,
the because we've been talking about stars for almost an hour.
yeah.
So was
I
that
mean,
was
we can pivot, but okay, well, we're changing the
I don't
topic.
want no because this is your show. I don't want to be
No, no,
rude.
I
So
mean
yeah,
that's fine. We can pivot. So we're talking about we're talking about we're assuming God exists. Why He allows suffering?
no, I'm not. I'm assuming God exists. You know, what I'm saying? You don't, and I'm okay with that. Yeah, I
Hmm.
don't. Yeah, that's not my thing. You know what I'm saying? I just know what works for me, right? So if you ask me that question, why does God allow suffering? I say that's the ultimate love. Because for you to be free, for you to have free will, I gotta have the choice to abuse my daughter or protect my daughter.
Does free will exist in heaven?
Does free will exist in heaven?
Hmm.
I don't know. I
So
don't know.
you go to heaven, boom, you lose your free
Right.
will. God no longer loves you no more because He took your free will. So He's not giving you the ultimate
Mm.
form of love in heaven because you lost your
So
free will.
let me process. Hold up. Does free will
Yes, you
so we
said
know
like
Satan so under the belief, we know that Satan was able to rebel under that belief. Um so I would
I'm just following your logic here because you said free
I
will
got
is
yeah,
the ultimate form of love.
I got a process because I wasn't speaking about heaven. I'm speaking about here. You asked me about heaven.
Mhm.
You changed the conversation. So here we know we have free will. I could choose right now. I can go murder my neighbor and nothing's going to stop me. You know what I'm saying? That's free will.
Sure.
So, but in heaven, I would say yeah because Satan was able to rebel.
So
Uh,
and there's free will in heaven now. We're gathering, right?
yeah. Based on my
Okay.
study, yeah.
Now,
Mhm,
so now we know since there's free will in heaven,
mhm.
God doesn't have to allow suffering in order to have His ultimate love because He can have His ultimate love in heaven without all that stuff
But
you talked about.
he does, and here's why. Like I said, if you take away the system that the system can't. You need that negative and positive. If you take that away, you're not free anymore. There's no freedom. So you
But
have to
no,
like look,
no. So, but remember, so that's not true because you have the freedom in heaven without the suffering.
that's the reward. But why are we talking
Okay,
about
but
something?
no, but so
Wait. You
you,
don't even want to see that's I
I'm
can't
following.
tell you
I'm
about
talking about.
heaven.
I'm no. So you don't have to tell me about heaven. So here's the issue.
Okay.
You're saying God has to allow suffering, for instance,
Yeah.
like rape and all of that stuff. He does that as the ultimate form of love. Yet He's able to give us that ultimate form of love in heaven, preserving free will
Mhm.
without all the nonsense, without the rape and the murder and stuff. Which
Because
means
that
if He can,
being
which means that God can give you ultimate love and free will without the suffering, which means the suffering is totally extraneous, which means your
Mhm.
argument falls apart.
Well, it doesn't. The argument doesn't fall apart. I mean,
Why does God need the suffering then?
you can call the argument irrational.
Why do
It
you?
doesn't. It doesn't. I just told you that the God needs the suffering because the love has to exist as well as pain.
But remember, you just
You can't
you
wait.
accept.
You're not. If you're not gonna let me answer a question, that's not a
Okay, I'll let. Okay,
conversation.
okay, my bad. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah. So the love we don't fully understand love. The reason why we fully understand love is because of the existence of pain. If you take away pain, you wouldn't understand love, and vice versa. Those two negative forces actually harmonize to create what it is they create.
So
So that's
do
Mhm.
people in heaven understand love?
I would have to say yes. But heaven is the
Okay,
reward, though. That's the heaven would be so
is is
getting to
God
heaven.
is God capable of teaching love apart from sin? Because I think you run into
Absolutely,
some, so now you run into
absolutely.
some. I think you run into some theological problems that I don't think you're willing to accept.
Oh
Because
no,
now
I'm a, go for it.
you're making God contingent upon sin.
God can take away
God
death.
is like, I want to do
God,
something, but I can't because there's no sin.
right? But here's the
That
answer to that. There's the
are
only
you willing to
thing.
accept that? Okay.
Absolutely. Watch. Let me show you though. Let me give you my rationale, not the rationale that you're creating. Uh, the only thing that governs God is His word. That's it. Nothing else governs God, right? So we're talking about sin. When you look at Old Testament, the way the government of God is set up, there can be no forgiveness of sins without the shedding of blood. This is why you bring in oxen and bulls and sheep and doing all that stuff. Also, man did not commune with God. You had to have a Abraham in place. You had to have a Moses in place. You had to have a high priest. This is just the belief. That's whether you believe or not. That's
I
cool.
can
It's
grant.
just belief. So Jesus, which is the Lamb of God, the final sacrifice. When Jesus is sacrificed, that veil was ripped. So now the Bible says in the New Testament that Jesus is your only mediator to God, right?
Mhm.
His blood covers a multitude of sins.
So,
So that's
question
so I'm able. Go ahead.
is it like God's will is it contingent upon sin?
No, God's will is not contingent upon
Okay,
anything. That's just the
okay, perfect.
government.
So God
That's
can
the
have His
government that's set
wills.
up.
So then God can have His will and give perfect love to everybody without
He's
the
all
sin.
powerful. He can do whatever he wants to
Okay,
do. He's
so
all
okay,
powerful.
so that
Yes.
means the explanation you gave for why we have sin and suffering no longer makes any sense because God
Tell me
don't need
how.
it. Your argument was that God needs it in order to give us love, give us the ultimate form of love and accomplish His will. Now you're saying He doesn't need those things. If He
So
doesn't need those things, then you
so
don't need the
that's
suffering.
so let's back up because when you speak like that, keep in mind our beliefs are two different things, right? You're speaking about a limited God.
I know. I'm
I'm
so
not. Wait.
all
Hear
I'm
me out, bro.
asking.
You're not.
Okay.
You're not here, but you're not hearing me out. You're speaking about a limited God. I'm speaking about an unlimited God. He's all powerful. He can do whatever and I'm only using he as the masculine term. God is not he or she, he's a spirit. So he can choose to do whatever he chooses to do. He's not limited by sin. He's not limited by love. He's not limited by anything. This is how the government is set up. He can
So
change it if he wanted to. He didn't have to send his son to suffer, to bleed, to die. That none of that stuff had to
so
happen. He
so
could have
gifted.
been like,
So
I'm changing this thing up.
so now you're saying God does not need sin to accomplish His will of giving us ultimate love.
You're still talking about unlimited God.
I'm asking you a question. I'm not talking
And
about any God. I'm
so
asking
let me
you.
answer it.
I'm asking
Let me answer
Give
it.
it.
Let me answer it a
I'm
different way.
asking
When you
you
get in your
about
car,
your
this
God.
and I'm telling you, but you're not hearing me. I don't know if you're listening to me to respond or if you're listening to comprehend what I'm saying. Let me
No,
give you a different
but no,
example.
gifted.
When you get in your
You didn't
car,
give me an answer. What you said was what I'm talking about, and I said I'm not talking about any
okay,
particular God. I'm just
when
asking
you
you about your God.
when you get in the car, you have the power to put your seatbelt on or not, right?
Yes.
You still all powerful, whether you
No,
do it or
I'm
not.
not. No,
No,
I'm
no, I'm
not
talking
all
about. I'm
powerful.
talking about. Let's not be contrary. Just be contrary. You're
I'm
very
not.
intelligent.
You just said I'm all. You
Meaning,
said I'm all powerful.
meaning, meaning you're all powerful in that situation where you can choose to put your seatbelt on or take it off. That power is all yours, right?
Sure.
That's what I mean by all powerful. Let's not be we're not arguing, we're just talking. Let's not be
I'm not
contrary.
either. I was just okay. You said something, and
Yeah,
I was
I
just
got
correct.
to. So
Okay,
in
so
that,
but get
so I gotta be
I
very
have
literal. I gotta be very literal.
I just have one. No, you don't have to be literal. You just have to be
Okay,
precise. Okay, so now I asked the question. The
okay.
question was, does God need suffering in order to execute His will of giving us
No, he does
ultimate
not
love?
need anything. No,
Okay, so now the question goes back to what I asked 15 minutes ago. Why do we have suffering then?
because I say this is what it is, does not mean that I need it to be that.
Yeah, so
I don't need
earlier
that.
you
That's
said that
you're comparing. You're putting two things together that don't go together. That's why I said you're
so
talking about unlimited
gifted.
God.
What I
Just
would
because he
do
don't
is
do it, that don't matter.
So gifted. So after the episode, I will do you a favor. I'm gonna timestamp the part where you said several times that God needs suffering in order to accomplish his will. He needs
Right.
that to give us free will and give us ultimate love. You said that several times. I will
I got you.
timestamp
So
it for
so
you.
please
Now
time, but I
you're
need your
saying the
time.
exact
Wait.
opposite because I pointed
I
out the
need you to
theological consequences of what you were
I
saying.
need you to time. I need you to timestamp this also. That's why I say I see that I have to be very literal when speaking to you. When I said you are
Not
all
literal,
powerful,
just
yes, when I
precise.
precisely, they're synonyms. I teach English. That
Mhm.
being precise and being literal is the exact same thing. You're being contrary, but that's
They're
okay.
not.
That's
Literal and precise
okay.
is not the same thing.
That's
But
okay. That's so. Give me the definition for precise.
precise being accurate.
Hmm. Give me the definition for literal.
Literal, that means something happened actually, not it like not figuratively speaking, but it actually happened.
So
Like
literal is accurate then, right? So
no,
you see
literal,
how so you don't see how those things are synonyms?
no.
Okay, don't worry about it. So when I said if you're in the car, you heard me very clearly. I said you can put your seatbelt on or take
Hmm.
it off, and I
I
said
do.
you're all powerful. As soon as I said that, no, I'm not all powerful. You know I don't think you're all powerful, but
I
you did so. So I
gifted.
need you to
I
make
gifted.
sure.
Gifted.
So that
Listen.
we can't
No,
have a
so
conversation if
forget the
you keep
medical
cut. Wait,
discussion.
wait,
Gifted.
listen up.
I
Forget. No,
can't
wait,
read
wait,
your
wait.
mind.
I got you. So that's why you have to listen, right? You just said that was a nice way of being very insulting. You said I'm going to because now you're saying that I'm contradicting myself. This is not a contradiction. I can explain it to you. It's just that you're taking some things very literal, right? When I said he needs, I'm speaking about the government that he set up. Then I explained to you, we ain't talking about the same God. You're talking about a limited God. I'm talking about an unlimited God. Meaning, when I say he needs, he only needs to do that because he chooses to do that,
Gifted.
not because he's tied to it.
I'm
No,
not
sir.
talking about any God. I was asking you questions about your God.
That's the God. I
So
can't talk about
now,
no other God. I'm talking about my God.
okay, so
He's
that's the
unlimited.
and if that's your God, then that's the only one I'm talking about.
That's
And
that's all I'm talking about.
all I was asking the question because you explained. So we you went down this road of trying to explain why we have suffering, right?
Yeah,
You talked about rape, murder, and all that kind of stuff, and you
yeah,
said that has to exist because God gives us free will, and that's part of ultimate love. All
yeah,
right. And then what I did was I went to heaven to point out how God can do it without those stuff.
yeah.
Right. So that points out a contradiction. And
It
then you
doesn't.
was okay. So if you say that God allows sin in order, God has to allow sin so we can have free will. But then you say
Mhm.
at the same time in heaven you have free will, but there's no sin. That's a contradiction. Is
I
sin
can literally show
required
you.
or not
I
required for
can
free will?
so I can't if um yeah that there's no other way that I can explain to you that aspect. If you're just going to reject it, then that's just a
I'm not
personal thing.
rejecting.
Yeah, I don't know
I'm
because
all
I
I'm
feel
doing is pointing out a
in my head I feel like I'm being very clear. God is unlimited. He can do whatever he wants to do. So we said that I've said that point many times. Then I said God set up a government. I even explained how in the law dispensation we had to bring forth oxen and sheep because the way God set up the government is that there can be no forgiveness of sin without the shedding of blood. Then I went 600 years later over
and
into the
so
dispensation. Wait, please,
okay.
please stop cutting me off. Then I went to the dispensation of grace and said that Jesus is now that mediator to the Father. So I feel like I've done an excellent job of explaining when I say need, is not putting God in a cage. He only does that because he chooses to do it like that. Why? I have no clue.
Okay, so all right. So when we talk about sin, right,
Mhm,
suffering, like for instance, like rape, right?
mhm.
So God, when He added that to the world, He didn't need to. He didn't need to do it for free will.
Mhm.
He just did it. He just chose to. Is
He didn't add that to the world though.
okay. So when God allowed it,
Okay.
so God just chose to do that. He didn't have to.
Mhm.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's the complexity of. You
Okay.
could have stopped
So,
Satan in
but
the
here's the
garden.
thing. So here's the thing.
Mhm.
That so that that undermines your initial argument because you were saying that God need those things to allow free will.
You just went all the way back to
Yeah, because that's
to
the
the same.
contradiction. That's the contradiction.
Wait, here's what I'm
There's
saying.
several contradictions.
But wait, let's not deal with several. Let's just deal with just one for right
Mhm.
now. When I say that he needed to do this, he does not. It's he only needed to do that because that's what he set up.
So
Set it
when you
up. He
said
he can totally rearrange it if he chose to.
so he didn't
Totally
need it.
rearrange it. Right. It's not, yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. When you the way you're thinking of a limit to God. I'm
No, I'm
saying that
not. I'm
I'm
just
saying that
asking you about
you're
yours.
you're a computer, you design computers, right? So when you're designing your gigabytes and the RAMs and all these things, you you don't need to have a terabyte, right? You can do just fine with 250 gigabytes.
Okay.
You get to choose which one I want to do. It's not something that you know what I'm saying? So I guess think of it like that. You're the designer. You're setting this up how you choose the word. Now, obviously, a terabyte is going to do the customer a lot more good than what the
Yeah. So,
250.
sin and suffering does not.
Yeah, and so and
So
that's the
that's what
complexity of
and that's
life.
and
Yeah.
that's why and so that's why I asked, like, why does God allow it? Because
Mhm.
when we talk about the problem of suffering, you're familiar with the problem of suffering, right? Like that's
Yeah,
kind of
y'all
what you
tell me,
described.
yeah.
That it's essentially the argument goes: if God is all powerful and all loving, why does
Mhm.
He allow suffering?
Yeah.
All right. Now,
Mhm.
a common answer to that question is the one that you just gave. Is that God allows it because of free will. He
That's
has
the
to,
faith. Yeah, that's
right.
the faith. Mhm.
Okay. So the big problem with that is that if there's a heaven, if there's another place that exists where
Mhm.
there's free will and no suffering, it it completely undermines the argument that suffering is needed. Because now, so if suffering, if the answer to the question is suffering is needed for free will,
Mhm.
then you cannot have a place where free will exists and no suffering.
So
But you
think
do
about
have
it.
that place. It's called heaven. There's the contradiction.
So think about it like this, right? You're in shape, right? You look you so think about you're in the gym, right? You're breaking your muscles down to failure, right? That pain. Okay.
Hmm.
But a so let's say you're 400 pounds, right? You have to put for a whole lot of effort to where you get to where you get to where you're at. Now, when you are where you at, you're no longer 400 pounds. You may be 260, 250 or whatever, 235. You're not that. That's an end result. That's the end result. You no longer have to do all. You still got to have a discipline, but you no longer have to do
But
the level
so,
of things. Wait,
and
let
I
me let
get
me
it.
finish. Let me finish
Okay.
the example. You no longer have to do the level of things. So I guess maybe think of it in that regard. Heaven will be the end result. Heaven will be the lost weight. Heaven will be, you know what I'm saying, the end goal, the end result.
So I can grant that. So I get it when you say heaven's an end result, and I completely understand that. Like I was
Mhm,
a Christian, right? I
mhm,
was a Reformed Christian.
mhm.
All right. So I understand there's an end result. The issue is it does not resolve the contradiction because if it exists at all, it contradicts the idea that it's needed for free will. because
So
now we
think,
know that it's not
Mhm.
needed for free will.
So think about this. Let me ask you this.
I,
If that's a heavy contradiction, right? Let's go to
Mhm.
the atheist mindset, right? Let's go to Hitler and
Sure.
Stalin. Only the strong survive, right? If if I'm bigger, if I'm stronger, if I have more resources, there's no moral compass because only the strong survive. We don't feel bad when a lion destroys a deer.
I do.
There's no moral.
I
There's
feel bad about that.
I feel I love Bambi too. You know what
Mm,
I'm saying? But at the end of the day, that lion is not going to jail. You know what I'm saying?
mm.
So under the atheistic worldview, you now keep in mind, I'm not saying atheists are not moral. I'm sure you
I,
are
I
very
already, I,
moral.
alre- I
I
already
would
know where
never
you're
do that.
going.
All
So
right,
I already know.
so go ahead. So go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Where am I
You're
going? Go ahead.
okay. You're gonna say that atheists have no basis for morality.
Yeah, like well, whether you know what I'm saying,
That's
how do you
false.
tell? So tell, but give me the. How can you tell me gifted? You can't go take your neighbor's stuff because that's wrong. Why is it wrong? It's evolution.
That's
I'm
not
bigger. I'm
evolution.
bigger. Okay, I'm not talking about. Come on now, don't let's not go backwards.
So no,
When I
okay,
say
okay.
evolution, I just mean me just
I want to talk
evolving
about
as
your.
a.
So you're conflating ideas. So
Okay, okay,
you're talking about nat. The idea of survival of the fittest. You use that
yeah,
word. Okay.
yeah,
All right.
okay.
Okay. That has no basis in natural selection, right? In science,
Mhm,
right? Now, because survival of the fittest, well, natural selection is a description of how genetic traits propagate throughout populations,
mhm,
right? It is a description, okay, of how something happens. It's a description of how we get diversity of
mhm,
life. There is nothing in the science that says that you ought to draw moral principles from evolution. That's absurd. That is
mhm,
stupid. You wouldn't say, "Oh, this is the lion eats the zebra, therefore I can kill people." That's absurd.
mhm.
Okay, so
Why is that absurd?
where in the model does it say that?
When the model it does not say that.
What? Why would it have to refute that? The ideas it's completely separate. Evolution by natural selection is the description of the way biology works. You wouldn't look at that and draw morality from it, just like you wouldn't look at general relativity and try to figure out how you should treat your neighbor.
So
That's absurd.
naturally selection says if I'm bigger than you, stronger, right? I can
No,
take I can take this from
no,
you. You can't. How
no.
can you
That
tell me
is
that I'm
wrong.
wrong?
That is wrong.
How? What are you basing that on?
Because
How can you
that's
tell me
not
that I'm wrong?
but that is not natural selection. Natural selection does
Forget natural selection. Tell me how that's wrong. We just talking about morality.
well, that's
Forget
what you
natural
just
selection.
said. That
How
okay,
is that wrong?
that's what you just said. Okay, so all right, so I've done the past 3 episodes. I discussed morality and atheism. So it's wrong
Okay.
because so it's wrong because it violates somebody's real being. Period. That is the. I mean, it's
Why
getting
is
late. I was getting
wait, why is that wrong?
because that's how it.
Why do I have to care about your well-being?
You don't have to. And just like I
If
can, just like if God gives a law, I don't have to care about what He says. You also don't
Mhm.
have to care about what I say about well being. We're in the same boat.
But the difference is I have a basis of saying, well, yeah, I can't do that. This ain't right. Under
My
the
basis
atheistic
is it
worldview,
violates
there
well
is.
being. My basis it violates well being.
Mhm.
And remember,
But
atheism, like I told you from the beginning, atheism is not a worldview. So
even with that,
so
even
you
with
wouldn't
it
look
is a
at
world. To say that it's not a worldview is kind of
what
disingenuous. It is a
what
worldview.
what is the worldview of atheists? What does it
It,
say about
it, it,
morality?
and then it all depends on who. That's what I'm saying. That's why I asked you in the beginning of the
There is no,
conversation. It all depends on who you're talking about, who you're
no,
talking
so
to.
no, so here's the point that I was making. Right,
Mhm.
it all depends on who you're talking to. This is
Yeah.
the you're agreeing with me. So what I said was atheism isn't a worldview. That doesn't mean atheists don't have worldview. Baldness isn't a worldview. That doesn't mean bald people can't have worldviews.
That's a
So
terrible example, bro.
that is functionally equivalent. There is no atheist worldview. That's why you can't tell me what atheism says about morality, origin,
I can't.
purpose.
Atheism says nothing about those things. We
That's
are
why it's
just
not. Neither
according
does
to atheism.
baldness.
Wait, wait. According to atheism, there is no purpose to life. We're
That's
just
wrong.
here. We're
False.
just existing.
False.
That is not false, bro. That is
That's a
not
lie.
false. So, what's the purpose of?
Gift
Well,
it.
why are you here? Why are you here?
Gift it.
What's the
Okay,
purpose of life
gift it.
from an atheist point of view?
So here,
Mhm.
can I explain something to you? Because
Yes,
now
sir.
you're telling me about what atheists say. Think about that
Yeah.
Facebook post where me and
Only
Fanatic
my
was talking.
experience now. Wait, 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 wait,
No,
wait.
no, no, no.
Let me
But
give a
gift
caveat.
it.
Only my experience. I'm not saying
Gift
that's
it.
not a broad generalization. Only my experience. Good.
Gifted. Okay. All right. You were just telling me what an atheist believe, and I was telling you I don't believe that. Just this is just
Right.
like that Facebook post. You were saying over and over again that atheists believe everything comes from nothing. And there was
Yeah.
three atheists in the chat with you. Me, Be Good, I think it was his sister. All three of us
Mhm.
are atheists, telling you we don't believe that. And you kept saying it over and over and over again. And then
And
it was just,
I'm still saying it now, bro.
but
You believe that nothing
think
created
about
everything.
think about and why did you say that when I just explained to you? I explained to you general relativity and how they're trying to blend it with quantum mechanics. I went like 20 minutes deep science with you.
See,
And now
where does
you
that
just
stuff come
you
from?
gifted. You just regurgitated a lie that I spent about 40 minutes trying to refute. You
No,
just
sir.
said
No,
that I
you
you
spent
just
40
said that
minutes
I
talking
believe
about it.
you
You didn't
just
refute it.
gifted.
Where did this
Gifted,
cantaloupe come
gifted,
from?
gifted.
Where did the
Hold on.
cantaloupe come from?
Gifted. You said that atheists believe, you said that I believe everything comes from nothing. And I
Mhm.
went into through this long instruction
Mhm.
explaining to you why I do not believe everything comes from nothing.
But
What you
then,
just said is a lie.
but you went on to explain from the cantaloupe example. You all that stuff. You're saying nothing created that stuff. You're saying it just happened.
That is wrong. I didn't say nothing created this stuff. I said when you get to a certain point, and that is
Mhm.
at the Planck time, our current models of physics cannot describe what's happening.
Okay.
That does not mean that I know anything about its origin. I didn't mention the origin at all.
Can you hear
I
me?
can I can hear you.
Go ahead.
So
My headphones died. Go ahead.
all good. So when I said was I was describing that when after we get to a point in time where we are no longer able to describe the universe.
Hmm.
We don't know anything about its origin. We don't claim to know anything about its origin. We can't see that
Right.
far. So when you say that people are atheists or science is saying that the universe came from nothing, that is a
Mhm.
lie. That shows extreme ignorance on what the science actually says.
So let me ask you this then. If that be the case, right? If just at its simplest terms, don't worry about what you don't know, right? Just based on what you explained to me, what you understand about intelligence, from the dam, the beavers to the humans, all that. You have an idea what intelligence is. So
Yes.
based on as far as your intelligence goes, when you look at the sun, the cosmos, our bodies, do you believe that something created that, or it just happened?
So let's no. So and there you go. So there's your false dichotomy. Something created or it just happened, right? As I explained several times, I don't believe the sun just happened. That's not the way it worked. I told you how stars come into formation. All right. I
Hmm.
gave you a truncated explanation of how stars power themselves
Hmm.
and then how they die. That is not, they just come into existence.
Hmm.
Okay. So saying that I don't believe that someone made it is not saying that it just came into existence. There's a bunch of other options, including the one that I gave you,
Hmm.
the one we observe, where the laws of physics just play out and you get a star. You have hydrogen, which is the simplest element in the universe. It's just one proton, one electron.
Where does hydrogen come from?
Hydrogen, when the universe cooled down enough, the quarks were able to bond, and then the electron could bond to the nucleus, could attach to the nucleus through photons.
Where does the universe come from?
So what do you mean where the universe came from? You talking about
Well,
like
like
you asked me
all
before
the
Planck time.
yeah, I don't even know
No,
what that
remember.
means.
So remember. Okay, so remember before, but when the Earth, when the universe was like really small, like in the size of a
Okay,
dot.
okay,
Is what you said. Okay.
okay, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
What'd you
So
call it for? What did you call it?
I said Planck time. Planck, well,
Plank
Planck
time.
length.
Okay, plank
Yeah, it's a
time.
Planck
Okay,
length. Uh-huh.
okay,
Okay, they're defined by each other, right?
okay.
But I yes, where did it come from? And
Hmm.
my answer was just like I said a few days ago on Facebook. We don't know
Hmm.
because the laws of physics stopped working.
But I'm just
Einstein's
asking
field
you based on your
equations.
intellect. I get that it can't be
So
proven. It can't
okay,
be.
so
I'm based on your
let me
intellect. What do you think?
my
What's your
intellect.
assumption?
So my intellect tells me that since our everything we know about physics at that point it stops working. So my intellect tells me to not make up shit.
Hmm.
And so that's what I do. I say, I don't know. I have no idea because we don't know what gravity was doing. We don't know how it behaves. Like you said, like gravity attracts, right?
Hmm.
That's not what it did in the early universe. It was repulsive.
Hmm.
What was it doing before Planck time?
Hmm.
No idea.
Hmm.
We do not know.
So
So,
not wait. So in that not knowing, right?
mhm.
In that not knowing, you're comfortable with saying that I don't know, and that's fair, right?
Yes,
That's a
yes.
fair
And
question. So
and if you accept,
wait, wait,
yes.
wait, wait. That's there's a catch.
Okay.
There's a catch. So in that comfort, here's my question. The same way you don't know that, how do you know that God is not real? How are you so sure that God is not real?
I didn't say God's not real.
So you may be agnostic, bro, not atheist.
No, that's agnosticism isn't atheism. So agnosticism is a position on knowledge. Atheism is about belief. So an agnostic says, "I'm not sure if we can know anything about God."
Right?
An atheist says, "I don't believe in God."
So
That's not the same thing.
based on what so wait, because maybe I'm misunderstanding and pardon my
Mhm.
ignorance. When you say this as far as my intellect can go, I don't know. That's a fair assessment. But you can stand firmly and say, but God ain't real. You
No,
know that's for sure.
I said I don't believe.
Right. So that's what I'm
That
trying to
that's just
understand.
lack.
How
That's
can
just
you be
like.
so sure
Hold on.
that God is not real
That's
when you
just, hold on.
don't
Hold on.
know?
Okay, because you has I thought you said you think you taught English. Okay, so think about
Hmm.
this. So think about like the prefix a, right? What does that
Hmm.
mean in English?
I have no
Like
idea.
non, right? Non,
Okay.
like a non, right?
Okay.
Theist is one who believes in God, one who accepts God claims, right? So atheist is just a non-theist. It's one who does not accept God claims.
Okay.
So that's all that is. So that doesn't mean
I
I
get you don't believe in God. That has nothing to do with what I just, I'm
that
asking you, how you so sure
I'm
that God is not real?
s- I'm answering your question because
Go ahead.
your question has a false assumption built into it that
Okay.
all atheists say that God is not real.
Forget all atheists. I'm talking about you.
Okay, me. I
Yes,
am
you.
not saying God isn't real. It depends on the specific God that you're talking about.
Forget forget his name. I'm just talking about a
So
powerful entity
sure.
that can do that
Okay.
created things.
Yes. Okay. Now, when we talk about like, so if you say just a generic God, as long as he doesn't have any properties that contradict each other, I don't know if he exists, but I'm not convinced that he does. That means he makes me atheist.
But you're not saying that he doesn't though.
Yes, that's atheism doesn't have to say that.
See, that's I guess maybe in atheism, is that a word, atheism? Maybe in
Mhm.
atheism, sometimes y'all may have the same struggle because I don't agree with every Christian. You know what I'm saying? You got some Christians believe some stupid stuff. So that's why I asked in the beginning, hey, what are you representing? Are you representing yourself? Because I'm not making up these arguments. You know, I'm not making them up. Everything that you've heard me say about atheists, I have heard starch atheists say. It's not me putting this out of thin air. So, and I get that you can defute some of those things the same way you may tell me some stuff about Christianity, and I'd be like, nah, I ain't with that. So when I hear you say what you're saying in my ears, you're open to the concept. It just haven't been proven. So until it's proven,
That's
you.
just atheism in a nutshell.
But see, my I'm
Prove the
43
God.
years old, bro. I'm 43. I've been doing this since 1999. Every single atheist I have ever met, dog, right hand of God, well, you don't believe me, right hand, whatever, they will look you face to face, eyeball to eyeball, and say, there is no possible way there is a God.
So
No possible
now
way
I want to challenge you on that because you said every atheist you ever met would
that I've
say
met,
there is
right?
no
Except you,
now.
right?
Okay, no. Now remember earlier you had said every atheist you ever met
Hmm.
claimed that everything came from nothing.
Right.
Okay,
No God, no
right.
God.
Okay,
This stuff just happened.
now there was multiple atheists telling you they don't believe that. And you kept saying, yes, they do. And you even did it to me about 10 minutes ago. So considering that I'm an atheist, several other atheists, Ted said they don't believe the thing you just said they believe. And you said, yes, they do. Isn't it possible? Isn't it likely that you've also encountered other atheists who did not believe the thing that you said? They told you that, and perhaps you just weren't listening to them.
No, because I don't think you hear what I'm saying. So
You didn't,
let
but you
me
didn't. You didn't listen. You didn't
let
listen to
you're
me.
not
You didn't
let
listen to Be Good.
I'm
You
because I'm
didn't
telling
listen
you,
to his
wait,
sister. We
I'm
were all
telling
telling
you,
you the same thing
I'm
over and over.
telling you, I'm trying to tell you, you don't have to keep saying the same thing. I heard you the first time. Listen, I don't think y'all three, based on our conversation, which is why I agreed to come on your show. Based on the conversation, I wouldn't call you an atheist. I
okay,
wouldn't
so
call you an atheist. Based on this conversation, based on the things that you're saying, I would not
mhm.
call you an atheist. I will call you agnostic, meaning, look, I don't believe in that mess. I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying it's untrue. I don't believe it. I'm following, you know what I'm saying, the scientific methodology until I see something different. I don't believe you're an atheist, bro. That's why the conversation was going like that on Facebook. Now the conversation was going good with you and with
Yeah,
fanatic,
I mean,
but
but,
I believe that was his sister. Oh, hey, cutie.
mhm.
I believe that was his sister. She kind of did something different. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that, that's fine.
yeah,
I
but
I like to give you a last word. This is my clue to get off the show.
I got you. Yeah,
But
it's been 2 hours, bro.
yeah,
No. I mean, hey, listen, dog. At the end of the day, I love you, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care what you believe in. As long as you're a upstanding human being, you doing right, brother. I'm in your corner. You got a friend in me for life. You know what I'm saying? I love what you do. It challenges my thinking. You know what I'm saying? So just in closing, I appreciate your time. I appreciate having a intellectual conversation. You gave me some game on a lot of stuff, but like I said, I don't believe you're an atheist.
okay.
Hey, do you like music?
I
You
do.
still you still like hip hop? So are
I
you?
Guess it. I know exactly who you are. I sent you a
Oh,
friend
bet.
request
Okay, bet.
about a decade ago when I was really into Christian hip hop. I know
Oh,
exactly who
bet.
you are.
Okay, bet. I
It's
just
just a,
got a new album, bro. Make sure you
okay.
check it out, bro. That thing
Okay.
jamming. But hey, keep doing what you're doing, man. I appreciate you, dog, for real, dog. I love you, dog, and just man, keep rocking and just stay open, bro. Stay open.
Okay. All right. I appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming
All
on.
right.
We'll do this again sometime.
Yeah, for real. All right,
All
dog.
right. All right, man. Appreciate you. All right, guys. Thanks for coming on to Now That's Debatable. We'll be streaming again. When's the next episode due? I think we're doing another intelligent design episode soon. I think it's Friday at 7:30. So tune in. But thanks, guys. Signing out.